Welcome to my new episode on how to create a classic Metroidvania game in Unity. In the last episode, we added the attack animation to the player, and today we will add the health system of our enemy. So when we attack the enemy, he will take damage, and at the end, if all the damage sums up, he will die. We will do this today. So let's jump in today's work. So that we can attack our enemy, the skeleton, we first need an attack box on our player. So we go to the player and we create an empty game object and we call it attack one hit box. On that hitbox we add a collider, and box collider 2D. We will activate the bool for is trigger, and then let's just attach or just adjust the position of our hitbox. It can be very practical if we use one of our attack frames on the sprite renderer of our player, so we can see on which location we have the attack, and then to that we adjust the attack hitbox, and I think here the position, and then you can click the edit collider button and just adjust the size. Maybe something like this. Yeah. And then we enable the attack hitbox game object. To this player attack hitbox, we need to add a new tag. We will call this tag player attack, save. Okay, then let's go to the player attack one hitbox and then just select the new tag player attack. In our player script, we add the lines header attacking and then serialized field game object attack one hitbox. This hitbox has to be set active when we know that our player is attacking. So if we know our animation player attack is playing, we can set it true, and if it's false, we can set it false as well. So first let's get to our skeleton behavior script and we add a few lines of codes. First we introduce a header for health. Then we use a serialized field and a range from 1 to 5, and then an integer for lives. So our enemy can have multiple lives as well. Then we use an integer for actual lives. We use a bool for hurted. Then we use a serialized field for hurted delay. So, and in float, hurted delay. So if we attack the enemy once and the enemy is attacked, we have to wait a little bit for being able to attack him a second time. This variable is important. We will create later an additional script that is managing here the attack box in question, and here we will use this. Then we define a float, target time. We will use a sprite renderer because when the enemy is hurted, we want to set his sprite renderer to a red value. We will use a bool for hurt start. We will use a bool in case the enemy is dead. And also I want to add a thrust to the enemy if the enemy got an hit. For that we will use a float, and we will use an additional float for short-term thrust. So now I will insert a new function called hurt. In that function, we ask if the enemy is hurted using a script that we still have to write later. So this line will trigger if the enemy is hurted. Then we ask if hurt is false. If this is the case, we set hurt start true. So we only run this one time. We will play a sound that we will attach to the enemy. Then we will set hurt start true. We will decrease the actual lives -1. And if the actual lives are 0, the enemy will be dead. And we will also set the bool dead in the enemy animation controller to true. Then we asking if the player is facing right. Then if the player is facing right, we attach the short-term thrust to a positive value. And if the player is facing left, we set the short-term thrust to a negative value. In the next step, we set the sprite renderer color to red, and we run the target time. And if the target time is larger than the hurted delay, the enemy will not be hurted anymore. Yes. Then if the enemy isn't hurted, we will set the target time to 0 again. We will set the sprite renderer color to white and the hurt start to false, so we can run the loop again if we hit the enemy again. Then when the enemy is dead, we will also set the short-term thrust to 0, and else we will set the enemy animation controller integer bool dead to false. I mean, we don't need this one yet, but we will need this one later when we want to respawn enemies. So I leave it as a comment in. Yes, also don't forget in the fixed update we have to call the hurt function. So you already see here a warning that the namespace enemy hurt could not be found. This is correct because we have to create now this function enemy hurt. For that we go to enemies. And in the enemies folder, we create a C# script called enemy hurt. And now let's go into this function. And I will copy this script. We will use a public bool hurted. This is the same bool that we ask for when we go to the skeleton behavior and ask point hurted. If this is true, if this public value is true, then we can run this if statement here. And we will set the hurt value true if the trigger that we touch has the tag player attack, and then we set hurted to true. And now let's go to our skeleton object and just attach enemy hurt script to the skeleton. And then let's add a collider, box collider 2D. We set is trigger true and we decrease the size of this hitbox a little bit. So this is fine. And there's one step missing here. We have to go to the skeleton behavior script and then go into the start function. And there where we have the player, we add the lines. So in the start script, we take a look for the player. That's fine. And then we get from the enemy the sprite renderer, and we get from the enemy herd script, because we attached the herd script to what in the skeleton object is attached as enemy object. So we did one mistake in the player script. We have to attach the hitbox of attack hitbox. Okay, this is this mistake, and then we have a null reference exception for the skeleton object. And that's because I forgot to add an audio source to the enemy. Yes, but that's no problem. We add an audio source. So, and I prepared some additional sound files for the game. So let's get in sounds. And yeah, let's go to the skeleton objects, and then the clip I want to play is here zombie dead. Yeah, don't play this on awake, and that's everything here. But just let me check. We had here also okay. I hope this should be now fine. It's working. But it's not working. Why not? So I got the reason for why we can only attack from one side, and the reason is that the attack hitbox only stays on the right side, but when we flip the character, it doesn't twist, jumps automatically on the left side, so we have to change that. So when we hit the movement inputs, we have to check in which direction we are already walking, and if we change this direction, we have to flip the whole player character. So when we move to the right, we will check if facing right is false, and also we don't use flip the sprite renderer anymore. It was a solution for the start, but we will now use here something different. Also, if we walking to the left, we checking if the player is standing to the right. If this is the case, we transform the player, and also we set facing right to true if we walking to the right, and we facing right to false if we walking to the left. We will save this, and then let's go. And now we can attack him from both sides. Yes. But you maybe are noticing we gave him like 1 life. We can give him also more lives, but he just doesn't die. And the reason for that is, I think we certainly have to add the death animation. Yeah. So let's just do this. Also, we don't, there's also another point that we, the short-term thrust. Exactly. When the player attacks the skeleton, we want to add a short-term thrust to the enemy. So I hit them and the power of the hit thrusts him away. We want to add this, and we have to add this into the function where we set the velocity in the movement. So here where we have the rigid body velocity, we just add short-term thrust times 4. Also here below, and this would be the 1 point. So this is also very important. At the end of fixed update, we just decrease the short-term thrust. So if we don't do this, the skeleton will just fly away, and we don't want to do that. This would be point 1. And I think for the deaths, we have to add to the game the death animation. I think in the animations we have something for that. So let's take a look on sprites. Idle death, yeah. So you know this, we have to go into the sprite folder, we slice, create by cell count 4, no, I did a mistake here, 4, slice, apply, close the sprite editor, we add the death animation here. Let's go to the skeleton animator. Let's add here the death animation, and then we need to add, and let me take a look into the skeleton behavior script. The term we want to use is, where am I? Dead. Okay. So we will use a bool, we call that bool dead. Yes. Then we make a transition from walking animation to the death animation. We don't need exit time, and we set dead true. And since from the death is now return, we don't need a return transformation. But if we add respawn to the game, we will need this. But this comes to a later point. Then let's go to scene, and let's just take a look how everything works. I know, guys, today I think unfortunately the episode becomes quite long again. Oh no. Yeah, the hurt thrust was set to 0. So now you can see the thrust is working. Oh, what a relief, you guys know. So here you can play in the inspector how much thrust you want if you attack the skeleton. This is maybe a little bit much. Also, maybe we have to decrease the size of the attack hitbox. I mean, just take a look. Let's decrease the thrust here. Also, don't forget changes you do in player mode don't be saved. So I set the hurt thrust here to 10. And then there's still the problem, the death animation will not be played. What is the reason for that? I know why. We didn't say we have to set in the start. We have to say that in the start that actual lives is equals to 2 lives. That was everything that was missing. In the inspector, you can give the enemy a certain certain amount of life points, and when we start the enemy just checks how many life points he has in total, and this will be the actual lives, and the actual lives decrease with each hit. And we forgot to initialize the actual lives, and therefore if we checking at this point if actual lives are equal 0, there wasn't an answer since actual lives wasn't initialized, and that was the problem. So I hope this was the last mistake for today. I apologize for the amount of mistakes I did in this episode, but this episode was quite a complicated one with adding the player attack movement and the lives. Okay. It wasn't the last mistake, but guys, it's quite a funny one. But at this point, I think let's us do this quite quickly. So first step is quite simple. We go to the project folder, we go to the death animation here, and we just uncheck the loop time option. So the animation doesn't loop. It doesn't make sense that the death animation does loop at all. So just uncheck this one, this loop time option if you have a death animation. The second step is we go to the script, and we already have the dead variable, and I would just say we go to fixed updates and throw this if statement if that is untrue. So if that is untrue, and then we can just put everything here right in this statement. We put everything in an if statement if that is untrue, and if that is true, nothing happens at all. So we just should put hurt also. Should we put hurt also in here? Probably, but I just want to set the velocity of our enemy to 0 when we are dead. I think this could be important. And what I did here wrong. If else. What was wrong? Guys, I'm so sorry. For today, everything is a mess. So, yeah. Still, I will put the velocity here to 0. I think that does make sense. So, okay, it works. But, the video is already long enough, but guys, I want to give our skeleton a little bit more lives. I think that's fair. Give him a chance to fight back. And I think we did a good progress today. And in the next episode. The next episode will be also a little bit complicated. We have to give the player a life system, but we checked this for the skeleton and it will not be any much so hard. One detail we can add here is to make the enemy white again if he is dead. And also I will do this because like this. It's quite simple. We just put here in the else statement where we check that dead is untrue or dead. So where death is true, we set the color to white. So this was everything for today. I will show you just how it looks now, and this will be everything for today. Let's just kill this dude. No, I think final blow, and he is dead. I think this is satisfying. And yeah, thank you so much for watching this probably long video, and I hope you had fun, although it was long and I did a few mistakes. So thank you so much. And don't forget to give the video maybe a like.